Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At least in the Western Hemisphere. Good morning to my friends over in East Asia, which includes our guest today. Stephan February has woken up from slumber to come onto the show today. So let's all give him a huge appreciation at the start. Give him a follow up, Beard Papa, all that stuff. So I'm Kurt Wuckert Jr. This is the CoinGeek weekly live stream here. I'm already screwing it up. Which we do every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The show is produced live from South Florida, the absolute center of the Bitcoin universe. Just ask anyone who lives here. We have Alex Vidal rocking the tunes in the background here. And I think hear a little bit of the brass in the background. There's not a lot of brass you hear in rock and roll nowadays, but Mr. Vidal has found it. So thank you, sir. If you are watching live, please like, subscribe, hit the alert bell. That lets our technocratic overlords know that you would like to consume more of our content. Thank you, everybody. Our last show happened on Election Day, so that was last Tuesday, the grandest, the revolution. But so everybody, a lot of my folks know I don't like to vote for people, okay, and therefore I don't almost ever. I haven't cast a vote for a human being since 2012 when I voted for Ron Paul. I was a big Ron Paul volunteer. Same thing in 2008. Ron Paul was my last chance, my last straw with politicians, and the lessons I learned in 2012 are that they will always stab you in the back. Now, I had a lot of people telling me why I should vote for Donald Trump, et cetera, et cetera. He's tremendous. And, the whole thing, I can think of some practical reasons to like Donald Trump. Okay. Like just the fact that I'm in the industry and mining and all this stuff is like, all of that is going to get better under Donald Trump. Probably. Okay. Now here's my problem. My main issue, the number one thing that I care the most about is like de-escalating our war posture. I don't want the United States to be spending billions or trillions of dollars on like being world police, our hundreds of bases around the world and all this stuff. Like, not only is it a waste of money, it is also a waste of time, and it is often a waste of human capital. We have the highest veteran suicide rates of any other country in the world. I haven't looked at the Russia-Ukraine numbers recently, but that's probably also pretty bad. But it's in our case, it's almost completely unnecessary. We are insulated from most of the world by two massive oceans. So we have very little threat of being invaded. And so I don't know why we need to have a posture that has us on this big external fight all the time. Now, before we get into all the global politics stuff, I must point out that my article today, my pinned post on X right now, is a discussion about some of the practical, like second order effects, the spillover benefits, and some of the costs that we get with the Donald Trump presidency. Because however you feel about it, whether you're super pumped or you're super like one of these people like ugly crying on the internet because Donald Trump is going to be the president again, it's like, those girls in their car on TikTok. But the announcement today that I heard, the first thing I woke up to today was Marco Rubio being appointed, he's not appointed yet, but being graced into the position of Secretary of State, which makes him the chief diplomat for the nation. And I can think of very few people who are worse for that role than Marco Rubio, who is a neocon warmonger monster on foreign policy. Like, everything I hate about foreign policy is embodied by Marco Rubio. Now, if you read my article today, it was written before this announcement, and I'm go over things that I am largely bullish about. This was Tulsi Gabbard. This was the Ron Paul stuff, a little bit about Elon Musk, a little bit about RFK Jr., and some of the other people that are kind of exciting to hear about in a potential Trump administration. But my goodness, when I hear Marco Rubio come up, I'm immediately like, yep, that's what I didn't vote for. And so my biggest concern is that when I vote, my vote will be used as a mandate to go kill people. And Marco Rubio, let's not take this entirely out of context, procedurally, bureaucratically, systematically, and militarily likes to kill people. And so There's a sound clip for the ages. Yeah, not a fan. I'm pretty upset about it. I think a lot of people that voted for Trump under the premise of him being something of a peace candidate or an anti-neocon candidate are already going to be very pissed off. So your libertarian contingent of the Trump voting bloc, of which I am not really because I did not vote for him. I'm like, bro, what is this? Let's not pretend. Yeah. I'm very frustrated. Okay, so before it even kicks off, go ahead, read my article. Still plenty of stuff to be excited about, but this Rubio thing's really got me like upset. So we're going to talk about Bitcoin instead. We have sponsors, thank goodness. Thank you to Rock Wallet for being the longtime sponsor of the show. If you check out Rock Wallet, they are a non-custodial wallet with built-in exchanging capabilities. And we also have Champions TCG, who will give away an entire deck of cards to the comment of the day. Mr. Vidal, per usual, also has a delightful meme of the week that I'm very much looking forward to. It's as much a surprise for me as it is for you. And yeah, so let's share this around the social media. Let everybody know we're live. Let everybody know we're having a good time. We're going to have Mr. Stephan February on to talk about Bitcoin and tokens in general, but very specifically his token protocol, which... do we need another token protocol? We're going to find out. And we're going to maybe be a little spicy because I'm pretty opinionated on this issue, but Stephan is probably smarter than me. So I'm looking to be taught on this episode. So let's cue up the ad here. We're going to thank Rock Wallet by playing their ad, and then we will be right back with Mr. Stephan February. Hello, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, awesome Gorilla Pool shirt. Thank you for wearing the swag. I appreciate it. It's a good man.
Yeah,
so,
I like connecting the community. So
absolutely. No, you are one of the guys who is a little bit under the radar for a lot of people. Like and I'm not really sure why. It's like you're out there, you're jazzing, and doing cool stuff, but. It's funny every time you come up, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about Stephan again for some reason. But Stephan, you're in East Asia. I don't know if you want to dox your location exactly.
No,
but
that's fine. I'm in Singapore. I think enough people know about that, so that's fine.
so why? First of all, why Singapore? Is it a Bitcoin thing? Did you want to be in like a healthy jurisdiction for Bitcoin regulation, or did you just feel like having good Chinese food on the regular?
No, so I came out to Singapore for work in the late 1990s, and I was working for a South African/British company at the time, and then ended up meeting a girl, as you do, and decided to tell my boss, listen, this long distance relationship thing isn't working for me. I'm going to go see what's up with this relationship. Then, yes, I found a job, and I thought that I would probably spend 2 years here and go back. And it's 25 years now. So
incredible. Well, that's I didn't realize it was that long. I knew you were South African, but I didn't know you'd been in Singapore for pushing half your life, I would guess. So
literally more than half my life, yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. How's your Mandarin, or what do you speak the local language well, or is it not unnecessary where you're at?
It's not necessary at all. I think it might have been useful maybe about 25 years ago when I first got here, but the government has made a massive push to just sort of standardize English both in schools and in general business. These days, it's English is basically, you get along with it just fine, no problem.
Sure. No,
I picked up snatches here and there, so I can say the odd phrase, say the odd curse word.
Yeah. That's always the most important stuff. So let's get into Bitcoin a little bit. What's your basic Bitcoin story? For people who don't know who you are, was your initial reaction like, hey, this is going to change the world, this is great, or were you a skeptic? How did you take it in, and how have you ended up where you are in the Bitcoin space?
Yeah, so I think that because I'm in tech, right, I got to know about Bitcoin really early on. And early on enough that I don't even think Bitcoin really had a price when I first heard about it. But that being said, I should also say that we were at the end of about a 10-year period wherein peer-to-peer when everything was peer-to-peer, and actually
Sure.
the peer-to-peer hype had died down by this point, right? We went through the late 90s. We had all the peer-to-peer file sharing stuff. We had eDonkey 2000, Napster, the big fallout that came out of Napster. You had people trying to do enterprise peer-to-peer. And then I see this thing about people trying to do money peer-to-peer with this Bitcoin thing. And I just thought, I shook my head like, oh, not again, right? Another peer-to-peer thing. So I ignored it for a while. And it wasn't really until maybe around 2011 or 12. I can't remember exactly when, but Bitcoin must have been about $10 at the time. But a French guy in a hackerspace here in Singapore, I went out and I bought both of us this milk tea that they serve in Southeast Asia. Comes in these little transparent plastic bags with a straw in it.
I love that stuff. It's the really sweet stuff, right? Very sugary.
Yes. Yeah. And he reimbursed me for the $1.20 in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That was back when Bitcoin was still peer-to-peer electronic cash.
Sure.
Well, all of the Bitcoins, because there was just one Bitcoin back then, right?
Yeah,
and it was still actually people used it like that. You could literally pay somebody for the Taitarik using Bitcoin.
Imagine that. Yeah.
And that is literally how I got my first Bitcoin. It was about 0.1 Bitcoin at the time, which is how I know that, it must have been around $10 or so when I got my first Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And it was sort of always in the periphery. I never really paid attention to it beyond that. I did briefly look into it. Being a software developer, I'm always interested in technology. And at the time, I was interested primarily in, okay, what can I build with Bitcoin? And I soon realized that the programmable parts of Bitcoin had sort of been locked away, stored in a cupboard under the staircase. And this was, don't go here. You're not allowed to go and fiddle with programmables. And so I also thought,
the unmentionables box. Yeah.
Yes. So this notion of the standard transaction, and you can only do these few scripts, and you can't really do arbitrary locking and unlocking that existed for the longest time in Bitcoin, sort of put me off of it for a long time. And it wasn't really until 2017, when the price was running up, that everybody, myself included, started searching in the sofa cushions for those Bitcoin keys that we had at some point in the past. And that is when I sort of started getting back into it. Then the Bitcoin Cash split happened. A friend of mine is a very strongly anarcho-capitalist guy. He pulled me into the Bitcoin Cash side. And the rest is history. I sort of slowly from that point on got more and more interested. In 2019, I started building the first Dart and Flutter library just for my own learning, really, at that point. Sure. And I ported the Money Button JavaScript library at the time for Bitcoin. I ported that into Flutter. So I literally just went through the code line by line and rewrote everything in a different language. With all the tests and everything.
It's very tedious. Yeah.
It was a long process. It took me almost a year to do it on my evenings and weekends, because I'm still working full time at this point as well. Right? I have a day job. Yeah. And then I followed that up with a Java library of the same, and that sort of fast forwards and brings us to this point. Yeah.
Are you primarily a mobile developer, or I guess you wouldn't have been 25 years ago? But what is your what's your development background and that kind of stuff? Why Flutter initially? I'm guessing you were building mobile apps at the time, but what's your history there?
I have literally never shipped a mobile app in my life.
Okay, nice.
I do love the. So originally, when I started as a software engineer in the 90s, I was building desktop software for Windows. So native desktop applications on Windows. Yep. And I always liked the idea of sort of the combination of not having to worry about what the widgets and the user interface should look like. I could just get on with coding it, which is the big frustration that I have with the web. Is every website is different, which means that every developer has to learn some new iteration of some different tooling. Very fractured space, right?
Yeah.
And Google has this notion of ubiquitous computing that they were pushing very hard about 5 years ago, which was this idea that you could get one programming language that would basically that you would work in, and it would make it easy for you to just target all devices, your television, your desktop computers, all the operating systems, small devices, and then of course the mobile phones as well. And because at that point in time, I thought, okay, for me, ubiquitous computing aligns really well with the notions of what I come to understand Bitcoin to be, right? Bitcoin is going to be everywhere. Computing devices are going to be everywhere. I'm going to invest time in front-end development tooling for Bitcoin that aligns with sort of, my ideas. I've got other ideas of what I would like the future to look like, and a future that includes Bitcoin everywhere.
I get that.
Is one of them. Yes.
So let's talk about your token protocol. Now I'm I'm one of these people who's been exhausted with token protocols now for a lot of years, because it's funny because they all in the big block Bitcoin space, they all optimize for something, and they all have some major trade-off on some other thing. Most of the trade-off has actually been scalability over time, in order to have more sophisticated contract types and those kind of things. But you try to make it complex, sophisticated, and you got too much compute, and then that doesn't scale, and you get this problem. Now, the other problem has been the indexing problem, which in my opinion is not. It's not a real problem. It's a short-term problem. Like, Facebook, for example, has an indexing problem, but for them, it's the business model solves it. And you just, hey, we're going to figure out how to index everybody's data because data is money. Mark Zuckerberg understands that maybe better than anybody, that data really is money. And so indexing it is just cost of doing business. Now, the back to Genesis problem and the indexing problem are related. And it's something that people have been trying to solve for a long time because they specifically want minor validated tokens. And I can think of a couple of reasons why minor validated tokens are super valuable. One of them is the censorship resistant aspect of the token, right? Like, it is just a Satoshi. It's just on the ledger. You can't go, blacklist some indexer, the addresses and this kind of thing. And that's great. But, so all this, maybe I'm setting up too many questions at once, but if you are trying to solve for that problem, I guess my first question is why solve for that problem fundamentally? Why do we need to solve the back to Genesis problem and the indexing problem? And we'll get to the second or third, however many questions I have kicking around in my skull.
Right. So I guess that in part, right, this is just a dev being a dev.
Which is cool. Yeah.
There is this problem that is sort of a juicy problem that has existed for a long time, that has seemed intractable for a really long time. Let me see if I can tackle it and actually figure out whether or not a technical solution exists that I would be happy with. So there is that aspect of it, right? However, there exists also this larger picture that I have in mind. So if you think about what the big block future looks like with Teranode and SPV, wherein you end up with devices that wherein the default mode of operation for our mobile wallets is an ability to communicate peer-to-peer with each other. I can connect directly to you, you can connect directly to me without any intermediaries. There is just you, me, and the blockchain essentially doing our thing. Now, there is that interaction of you, me, and the blockchain exists on a spectrum. It could be you, me, the blockchain, and my API server. You, me, the blockchain, my API server, and an indexer. You, me, the blockchain, somebody's API server, and a overlay node of some sort, right? That does something else. It exists on a spectrum of things. Right now, we have essentially a gap in the solution space, which is the you, me, and the blockchain part, where it should just take yourself, myself, and the blockchain in order to do a peer-to-peer interaction, the way that we do with Satoshis. And the reason why that is interesting is because it opens up a class of solutions wherein I can run on a mobile device that I have a light client node that actually hooks into the Bitcoin network, a peer-to-peer library stack that allows you and I, once we connect to the internet, to discover each other peer-to-peer and facilitate these interactions. And it also means that you end up as a developer being able to deliver certain types of applications that literally requires no server-side infrastructure. Because you go back, you back off from platforms, you back away from software as a service, and you go back to the original 25-year-old notion of peer-to-peer interactions, where it is literally just UI and the direct value exchange, right? So that one end of the spectrum until now hasn't really been covered. And I've sort of taken care of that now, I should think.
You know what? I'm always skeptical when somebody, changes the universe again. And here's my grand invention. Now, I've always respected you. I like the stuff in fact, your content is some of the best content that I've seen when you're producing content about, technicals and stuff. So really good stuff. So when you came out with a new thing, it was like, well, okay, I guess I better brush up on this. And it's a really novel way to make something happen. And what I like about it is actually it's simplicity. I think so many token protocols, I'm thinking back to, some of these things that were invented for the sake of facilitating DeFi on Bitcoin, and they're super complicated, and which is why they don't scale. And I think your solution here, because of its simplicity and the fact that it is, essentially just truly layer one, then it's as scalable as the network itself. And then, so I think that's the first key. And then the second key is that it's really easy to understand. Now, my concern is that network effect, and I would have disagreed with this a couple of years ago. I'm going to disagree with myself from 2 years ago, but I think network effect, I didn't think network effect was as important. That hey, the best tech, the best ideas will win in the long run, et cetera, et cetera. But now we're looking at BTC at $88,000 this week, and it's like, all right, the worst tech. Why is this? no, but I still think in the long tail, BTC can be a meme for longer than we can remain solvent or whatever else. But ultimately, the network effect of that network and what it means to people, including Michael Saylor will talk about Bitcoin and basically describe 50% of what he describes is not possible on BTC, but he's talking about it here's all these superlatives. I'm just I wonder if he even knows he's lying right now. And because it's in the pamphlet, right? The Bitcoin pamphlet is what he's reading, but it doesn't apply to BTC anymore. And that's, Internet of Money, that sort of thing. Now, so getting back to my thought, a lot of work, a lot of brain power has consolidated under this concept of ordinal tokens, which I also like for their simplicity. It was actually the thing that stood out to me is, oh, you're just renumbering a SAT. So it's great. The token itself can move however you want. Even if the indexer is slow, it'll catch up and everything will be fine, right? And so, then you can iterate on the indexer, everything's fine. So I like that idea for two reasons. I actually think that if it becomes more profitable, it just becomes more scalable because you can always make a better indexer. But also, there's all of this network effect around the concept, including over on Doge and over on Litecoin, and any UTXO blockchain worth its salt has an Ordinals implementation now. So my question is with your token protocol, is this something that can conceptually be applied to these other, like, essentially ordinal based tokens, or are they fundamentally separate buckets of tokens and yours are going to have to be for a specific use case? Or do you even care if they're used? Is this you, like you said, it's development for development's sake is cool, but do you see this? Do you want to see it commercialized or any of that? And if so, like, how easily can it integrate with the meme of the day, the Ordinal token protocol?
Right. So I think that so Ordinals by definition, right? I like to call it small block tech. And the reason I call it small block tech is because of its origins within small block thinking, because it's comes from this notion that we can do a token protocol in a way that actually allows us, that pushes this notion of altruistically running an indexer for somebody to essentially, it takes us back to this notion that I must run a node in order to serve the world some free stuff, right?
Sure.
And if you move away from the altruism, then we get back into the part which is in the first part of the Bitcoin white paper, which is the reason why Bitcoin exists in the first place, is because when it comes to money, there is a class of transactions that are not possible because running the infrastructure has so much overhead that the costs of running it has to be passed on to everybody, right? And this includes the compliance and the risk stuff that has to go into it. So if an indexer is not going to be run altruistically, then they're going to charge money, which is going to raise the minimum amount of money that developers and downstream, right? So the costs move downstream, and so now you end up with a floor for where your tokens exist at the Satoshi level, right? What is the smallest amount of money that I should be charging for a transaction fee when I move the token around as a service provider? Yep. So this is part of it, right? And that cost goes up over time as the blocks get bigger. The cost doesn't come down because there is no, because the infrastructure, the cost of running the infrastructure to operate the indexer will scale linearly as the blockchain scales, which means that unless the person running the indexer also scales the cost of their their revenue linearly, they are essentially sinking more and more money into something that is not necessarily making them money, which to my thinking means that there is a bigger risk that the person will just one day decide, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm out. Or they start charging, and then we're back to, okay, what is the floor price, right? Yeah. So there is that aspect of it. And then when you think about just purely peer-to-peer tokens, the price is baked in, it's upfront, you already know what it is. So the trade-off that I wanted to mention before, which I didn't really touch on, right? And you said it earlier, is there's always going to be a trade-off, right? Yes. The trade-off with the TSL1 token protocol is the amount of space that it takes. A one-set ordinal takes less than a kilobyte of space, less than 1,000 bytes of space, right? And it costs you literally one sat to transmit it. Yep. The TSL1 tokens, essentially the cost of a transfer, it takes 2 transactions to transfer, and cumulatively the total cost runs up to about 220 sats, which is slightly below where the dust limit used to be, but it's not 1 sat, right? It's also larger, right? It's 220,000 bytes that you're transmitting in total versus less than 1,000 bytes that you are transmitting. And in that sense, the token protocol itself is a big block, or a Teranode token protocol, if you will. Sure. Because if you really want to make millions of transactions using of these sorts of tokens per block, then you really can't do it in 4.5 gigabytes. The most that you can get into a block right now would be 58,000 of these transactions. 58,000. Hang on, let me get my calculation out here.
Yeah.
I worked it out. Yes, it's around. I think it's around. Let's say 58,000.
Yeah.
Yes, per
Good
block.
enough. Yeah.
Speaking
Cool.
under correction. Speaking under correction.
Yeah.
So I guess the idea is right that you will, as opposed to millions with a one set, right? You get more than a million, almost 2 million. So there is this trade-off that goes into it as well. And I have rambled so long on two different things that I have literally, I can't remember if I really even answered the question that you had.
I think so. Compatibility, like if you were to integrate
right.
your ideas into exist, like does that work? Is there any crossover, or in order to benefit from your design, you have to just go that direction completely?
Yes. So in terms of, they are to an extent competitors, the different protocols, the Ordinals style protocols versus this new protocol that I've just developed. They are in a sense competitors, but not just competitors because they're both token protocols. They're competitors because they, in one sense, solve the same problem, which is give me a token that I can essentially do stuff with. I want to make an NFT. Give me a token protocol that I can do it with. In another sense, though, they exist to solve different types of problems in different types of ways. So, for example, I've worked in payments and the blockchain space for a long time, so I understand the way in which value moves in networks fairly well. And one example that I can give you, right, is, sorry, I tend to talk with my hands. Let me take them off the screen.
Totally. I do the same thing. So.
The one way in which you can think of the typical value movement is that you end up with a token that is issued by an issuer. So that's one entity, an issuer. Then you have the person that the token is issued to. It's now Stephan. Then there is somebody who's going to redeem the token for value, right? So let's say I get issued a voucher, Stephan gets the voucher. There's a merchant, Stephan redeems the voucher with the merchant. And now the merchant can redeem the voucher back with the issuer for some monetary exchange, right? Or it can be a link to Stephan gets a link from an affiliate that he passes on to a customer. And when the customer visits him, then the customer essentially redeems with the website the token. The website then takes the token back to the affiliate and says, the customer redeemed this token, give me my money. Always this three steps, right, that you go through. So a lot of the token space where you just have these three basic steps that you have to go through, where you always have a central issuer that has to be kept in the loop with all of this, that can work with one set. It can work with any sort of permissioned token protocol as well. And I kind of am classing implicitly one set ordinals into the permissioned token class because you need a third party to essentially help you prevent and attest to the fact that the token is not being double spent, right? Mm-hmm. So in that sense, when you have to involve that third party, there is a really large, and probably the majority of token implementations or in the problem space of the sorts of things that you would want to do with a token, you typically end up with this entity in the first place. There is an issuer who wants to be kept in the loop about the movement of each and every part of this token anyway. That is probably about 60-70% of the problem space that's covered by that. And then there is other types of protocols that can exist in smaller parts that probably take up the rest of that 40-30% in the space. And the two-stack token is in that, and there probably is a little bit of overlap between the two as well. But at the extreme edges, they probably don't really cover each other.
Sure.
You can do stuff that cross over. So, for example, right, you could, for example, burn a one-set ordinal into a TSL1 token. You can do it in a way where, say, for example, the issuer of the one-set token or the indexer of the one-set token or one-set ordinal can essentially burn it, sign with the public key, with their own private key, the fact that they've attested to the burning and the issuance of the TSL1 token, and now the person receiving the TSL1 token has an implicit assurance that what used to be a one-set ordinal is now a TSL1 token. I don't know why they would want to do that, but if they wanted to, that is, for example, something that they could do.
Bridge assets, man. That's everything. Everyone wants to bridge their assets. So I like that.
And so in terms of compatibility, they are inside the representation of the token. The way in which data is carried within the token, those can probably be exactly the same, except for you don't need to have an ordinal number assigned. I'm actually playing with the idea of probably just using the BCOM protocol and the Bitcoin schema stuff that has already been done for specifying identity of tokens and token metadata, and attaching that as the op return output for a token protocol, because TSL1 as it exists right now is a meta protocol. It's sort of the carrier signal that you can define a token protocol inside of. The actual token protocol, whether it is going to be carried as a BCOM, as an NFT, or as a fungible token, has not been defined yet.
Okay, so it's really interesting. It's a lot of thought that goes into it. What is the mechanism? Like, if you could break it down for most of my viewers are not developers and not working specifically in the tech. By what mechanism are these sorts of things created such that they don't require an indexer and all these other things? Is there? I watched your video explaining it simply, and it was 35 minutes long. So I hope we can do maybe a 2-minute answer if possible. But just wanted to give you the opportunity. Yeah.
Yes, and I made 2 of those videos because I realized in the first one that I explained it very badly, and in the second one I explained it better but very technically. So the short explanation, I guess, would be that you always end up with this problem of, because of the way that the UTXO set works, the UTXO set that Bitcoin has, or the UTXO model, I should say, has this benefit that it is massively parallelizable for computing, which makes it massively scalable at the same time, because you can sort of distribute the compute horizontally and scale it out for processing it. Comes with a bit of there's the other side of that sword. The double edge of that sword is that you disconnect the input and the output side of the transactions, right? So the transaction itself inherently doesn't do what we call carry state between one output to the next. And because you can't by default carry state, the transactions, apart from the Satoshis, are the only thing that by default have double spend protection. So if you want to give other things double spend protection, like a meta token, in my case, I'm calling it a layer 1 token, and we might want to talk about definitions as well. Like, does that mean Satoshis are layer 0? I'm calling my thing a layer 1. Okay, but anyway, so in the sense that you have this problem that if you wanted to create an additional layer 1 token, let's call it, for want of a better word, and you wanted that to have native double spend protection, you have to jump through a few hoops. And the hoops that you have to jump through in order to get there are non-obvious, which is why people have been wrestling with the problem of back-to-genesis, etc. And in the case of the TSL1 token specifically, the hoop that I jump through is that I essentially, inside Bitcoin script, perform a SHA-256 calculation. And for everybody who knows the Bitcoin well enough, you will know that SHA-256 is sort of the native hashing algorithm that Bitcoin employs for everything, but for a lot of stuff. your transaction IDs, your the block ID, the headers, everything gets hashed with SHA-256 at some point or another. And the ability to perform that calculation, or really the algorithm that performs the calculation, was actually developed by Scrypt, and they published the code for that. I used their published algorithm that could, in Bitcoin script, perform this SHA-256 calculation. Sure. I'm essentially leveraging that as a key part of providing for this double spend protection. And I guess that part of the novelty of the solution is that I have managed to reduce the size of the needed computation from what would otherwise be 5 to 10 megabytes worth of calculations in script down to where it can be done in basically 100,000 bytes for one SHA-256 calculation, simply by cleverly arranging the data and the way that things have to be hashed. But cool. Yeah,
and was that what was included in the Scrypt contract that allowed you to do that, or was that your contribution to the idea?
No, it is included in the Scrypt contract. So in order to perform the Scrypt contract already gives you the ability to perform a SHA-256 calculation inside Scrypt.
Right. Okay.
You have to decide for yourself though how much data you have. And the way that the SHA-256 calculation works is that it consumes data in chunks. It consumes it 64 bytes at a time. So if you have 1,000 bytes of token, then it has to compute 64 bytes at a time. And each of those cycles of computation for just 64 bytes of ingested token data, where it's trying to compute this, in script results in 50,000 bytes of code on chain. So if you want to get away with basically doing just 2 rounds of calculations, which is 128 bytes, then you still end up with 100,000 bytes of data inside Bitcoin script, which basically is the program that computes all of this, the 2 rounds of SHA-256. And I have essentially figured out a way to arrange things in such a way that I can perform I only need to perform 2 rounds of SHA-256 in order to provide the double spend protection. And that is sort of just by rearranging a bunch of stuff, doing a lot of things off-chain, computations off-chain, and lining all the things up in a way that makes that possible.
Well, that's fascinating. So what do you think, if you were to basically be able to wave a magic wand, what do you want this to look like in 6 to 18 months? Like, do you want this to be something that grows, or are you willing to put work into like helping people onboard stuff into this, or like what do you want this to look like?
In the short term, I've had contact from somebody within the BSV Association. In the short term, I would like to get a BRC out there, get some feedback from the developers, develop some sort of a standard around it that people could, so that if people start developing solutions with it, that we're all essentially have an interoperable version of this token protocol. Because like I said, it is right now, you can pretty much do with it what you want, and you can implement your own version of this thing, whichever way you want. So in the short term, get some standardization. But I also still have this vision of a future where what I like to say is, for me personally, I would like to build the software that does for Bitcoin what Linux did for the internet. So Linux made the internet go up into the right. Yes. Because it allowed cheap commodity compute into everybody's hands. And they had software that was essentially commoditized to the point where they could get free software and then do whatever business it was that they wanted to.
Sure.
My primary interest right now is essentially building something that sounds a lot like an enterprise token server, that is open source under a very liberal license like MIT or Apache that could just be put out there free of charge, and that covers all the token use cases with all the different types of tokens, with all the styles of token movement that you could possibly conceive, that has API endpoints and that you could integrate into a custom solution or a custom stack where you can issue it, you can redeem it, and where it becomes something that you don't have to think about. It's off-the-shelf software that you take and basically you run with it. And I actually have a bunch of the code for this thing written from donkey years ago before I got distracted with the back to Genesis problem.
Sure.
And I'm just going to now go ahead with that. And now that I feel very comfortable in my soul that I've got the full spectrum of possible tokens covered, there isn't going to be this one thing in the corner that's going to bother me. So
I like that.
The future for me is essentially an enterprise token server where every possible token use case that you can think of, whether it is a peer-to-peer token, an ordinal type token, or something that you customize yourself, whether it has peer-to-peer interactions or redemption cycles, or purpose-bound money, whatever you want to call it, that ends up getting covered.
Very cool. Man, there's like a million directions I could take this. I think we should take a few questions and comments from the crowd, because I can't believe we have less than 12 minutes left in the show already. But
wow.
It's funny. The first half of the show is always like, I hope I don't run out of questions. And then the second half, it just like slips away. And I'm like, I wish I had 20 more minutes. So no, this is great. Mr. Vidal, let's bring up a few comments and questions for the crowd. Jordan Kramsky, I just wanted to share my appreciation of the videos you've shared on your YouTube channel over the years, Stephan. Yeah, indeed. I mentioned it earlier, but your video content is really, really good. So people should check out. What is Jordan. The channel? It's 2Stack.
It's
something.
Yeah, I think you just go to youtube.com/ let me confirm quickly. You go to youtube.com/2Stack. Yep, just youtube.com/2Stack. Yeah.
Cool. Love it. Get a nice shirt compliment from Nelson over here. Agreed. Thank you, Bridget. Bridget's
where is the banana?
Yeah.
The pool and the hooligan.
Absolutely.
The screen is inverting my fingers and confusing me.
Yeah, I hear you. No, and shout out to Hooligan for putting those shirts together. He designed them and just kind of put them together with a big idea in his head. And if you tap the banana, I think there's an NFC tag, so the shirt is also a token. So everybody should check out Hooligan stuff. So he's great. Another South Florida gem of a person too. So we got Tim Swan, who's a guy I've been talking to a little bit more lately. Another guy who's like super smart and out there producing some interesting content. Kurt, Tim, Bridget, and Craig should build next generation source editor. He keeps bringing up Git on chain as a problem that needs to be solved, and I like it conceptually. I don't know if it's a problem that needs to be solved, but I do like the idea for the sake of persistence. But no, that's cool stuff. Tim, thanks for watching. I'm not criticizing your idea. Yeah, Tim does have fun vids. Tim's a cool guy. Let's get through a few more. Do we have any? Let's see. Where can I get Gorilla Pool shirts like that? Check out Hooligan. Hooligan commented on here. I actually don't know his website. It's Hooligan something.
Hooligan
I think it's in the Hand Cash
culture.
app. Hooligan Culture. Yeah. So, but I think you can access it in the Hand Cash app. I think it only you can make the purchases with Hand Cash. So go check it out. It'd be appreciated. Any key upcoming dates for BSV, Teranode in the next 6 months or so? Good question. I don't know any hard dates. I know Teranode stuff. I mean, we're working hard at Gorilla Pool on Teranode, like testing and implementation stuff. Yeah. But Q1 is what we're saying. Yeah, but we're the Mandala update. They're talking about Chronicle and some of these things. So there's going to be an SV node implementation upgrade, and then Teranode. So these are starting to become parallel until SV node is deprecated. So on my side, so like Gorilla Pool, Tal, and anybody else running SV, infrastructure, we've got a busy couple of quarters. So, but I don't know what else. Any other big stuff going on? Anything in your mind next 6 months?
I'm just thinking about the Chronicle update because it's going to do something very interesting. And if there is somebody else out there, I'm not saying you should go and try and invent another token protocol, but the Chronicle update does something very interesting and it unlocks a few more capabilities. So if you have an enterprising mind, maybe you can go and figure something out, but it's not going to be me. Yeah.
Love it. So can your indexing be used for BTC ordinals as well as real Bitcoin? So that's actually... I forgot I wanted to ask this question. Your idea, does this require BSV script and stuff to be able to do what your tokens do? I imagine it does,
yes.
But
yeah, okay. Yeah. You won't be able to perform. SHA-256 calculation is a fairly involved calculation to begin with, and it essentially exercises the breadth of the computing capabilities of a programming language, and you really need the unfettered Bitcoin SV version of script, of Bitcoin script, in order to do that. So for this version of the protocol that where you basically leverage SHA-256 on script, absolutely not. None of the other UTXO chains can do it, simply because their Bitcoin script is limited and locked down.
Gotcha. I know there are some like limited versions of S-script available that can work on BTC, probably Litecoin as well. But are there ways to sort of pass this into an S-script contract that makes it doable, or probably not?
No, it really needs those opcodes. I mean, S-script has a really novel way, for example, of doing within the BTC space, where they've gotten close enough to doing a solving back to Genesis using the CAT20 protocol.
Yep.
But they need opcat to be basically removed, or rather. So good luck. I hope them. I wish them all the best. They're gonna have to convince the core devs that they should undermine their own small block narrative.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're lucky. The good guys always win every civil war if you just read the history books. So we'll be in a good spot there. Robin asking, when do you both forecast BTC will crash? I'm forecasting a great recession toward the end of 2026 in mortgages. Well, this is probably well outside of my pay grade, but I don't think it'll crash that soon. I think eventually the economics of BTC, either BTC has to very fundamentally change to look quite a bit more like BSV, or it will collapse under its own weight due to the fact that money is not infinite. It can't just be a $50 trillion asset just because it has a sustainability problem inbuilt that Satoshi gave us a time bomb with the diminishing subsidy. But when that runs out, I don't know. I think it'd be irresponsible to predict when it runs out. But Stephan, on me saying it would be irresponsible to predict, what's your prediction?
I am the worst person to ask this question of, because I basically thought that the last pump that the whole crypto camp went through, where BTC ran to 60 like a few years ago, I thought that was the end of it, and I thought that we'd seen the last of it, and look where we are now. Already, if you hang out with me in spaces, you'll hear me call me as this is the end. It is the final version of this one. But so much for peering into the future.
Is what it is. Yeah. Well, so where I do agree with Robin is, we do need a real recession at some point. Like, we have been on an upswing based on a lot of funny money and a lot of bad policy and stuff that has given us this artificial bubble, really in a big way, for about 25 years, but it kind of keeps getting worse. So at some point, chickens come home to roost. But I've been saying the same thing for almost 20 years myself. Like, the dollar is going to do all this. It's like, I really wish I would have just shut up and put money in like the S&P 500 and Bitcoin and just done nothing. But whatever. So at some point, it does got to contract. But it's who could call it?
there is about a 10-year cycle of the way that the fiat money system kind of operates, right? With the issuances, where it creates these boom-bust cycles. The boom-bust cycle almost has a very predictive 10-year cadence. And we're at about year 15 since the last bust cycle.
Yeah.
So,
Great. so bigger boom, then what? Anyhow, any other have you seen Ken Sato's STVP protocol for back to Genesis? I have not.
I have.
What are your thoughts there?
It's a good solve. So basically what it is you carry the historical data using this standardized format that we have with the BSV Association called BEEF, B-E-E-F. Yep. So you essentially take a BEEF protocol, a BEEF standard format. The idea is just you literally carry the entire history of the token along with it. Not on chain, but when I do an SPV transaction with you, I give you the full history of the token. And there is space for a token like that in the protocol like that, because if it is a tiny token that is maybe 500 bytes or 1,000 bytes, you will have to transmit that token back. And the token will grow, or rather the transmission of the data grows over time. Yeah. But it takes you 220 transmissions back and forth before your token becomes so fat that it is now the size of a TSL1 token, right? So
nice. Yeah.
But it keeps growing, but it doesn't. It grows sort of slowly over time if the individual data component is small enough.
Cool.
And you have to perform the back to Genesis tracing at every step when you receive the token. So as the longer the data packet, the longer the validations will get at the device that's doing it as well. But it works. Yeah.
Cool. I like that. I think we got maybe one more question or comment here, and we're like right at the top of the hour. Do we have Mr. Vidal anymore, or should we? All right, Stephan, any closing thoughts? Where would you? Is there a stablecoin on BSV? Last question from Rob. Not exactly yet, but the money stablecoin, which is like a joint venture thing from Rock Wallet, seems really cool. We're bullish on the money. But it's an MNEE. I don't know if it's .org or whatever, but if you want to look into it, there's some stuff on social media about it. I am bullish on money, the token, because just pretty simple, well designed, good liquidity, trusted partner, that kind of thing seems like a good thing. But yeah, so coming soon, I guess. But let's Stephan, I'll give you the last word. Closing thoughts. What do you want to leave people with? Where can they follow you? What would you like people to do if they were listening to you for advice about everything?
Because I have a day job, I've kind of stepped away from doing stuff on YouTube, and I typically hang out in spaces these days. You can basically follow me on Twitter at BeardPapa. If you see me pop into a space, come say hello. Other than that, 39 for Zach.
Yeah, amen. Beautiful. So thanks for coming. We'll talk soon, and take care. All right. So, okay, we need to do a couple things. We're going to run right into the meme of the week. I'm going to talk a little bit to Mr. Vidal here, and we're going to get this show wrapped up in the next probably 2 or 3 minutes. Meme of the week.
And now, it's time for the meme of the week.
A software tester walks into a bar, runs into a bar, crawls into a bar, dances into a bar, flies into a bar, jumps into a bar, and orders a beer, 2 beers, 0 beers, 99,999,999 beers. A lizard in a beer glass, -1 beer, QWERTY beers. Testing complete. A real customer walks into the bar and asks where the bathroom is. The bar goes up in flames.
Yes, Ben. Let's Ben, if you could reach out to the real CoinGeek account on X, that'll be the way to do it. And yeah, I think that's everything we got for the show. So Ben, congratulations. You will need a hand cash wallet. Reach out to real CoinGeek on X to claim your prize from Champions TCG. So thank you to Champions TCG and Rock Wallet and the rest of our sponsors, everybody that makes this show possible, all the people at CoinGeek, Mr. Vidal for making the show more than just me talking. Like, you get the sound effects and the stuff. He actually makes me more handsome on air with on the fly Photoshop skills and all the other stuff. So also thank you to Stephan. Stephan was a great guest, actually a really great guy to talk to. A lot of experience, just the fact that he is a experienced gentleman in many regards makes him a good guy to have around for all kinds of reasons. So if you are watching, thank you. It is an absolute delight to do this show every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you could like, subscribe, hit the alert bell, and join me in doing more push-ups for Zach. So hashtag 39 for Zach. Zach is 39 years old. Zach had a massive cardiac event. It was, I think it was an arterial tear. I'm not a doctor. I don't know if there are details that make it a special one in any way, but Zach had a massive life-changing event, and a bunch of his close friends, and now it's spreading and spreading, are doing 39 push-ups per day and putting the video online as a way to show our love and support for Mr. Zach Wins, Zach Wieners, Developing Zach, all of that stuff. So if you want to join, please do it. 39 push-ups is not easy, and most of us are not that good at it. In fact, I really struggled today with my video, but we got it up. So join us. Let's do the push-ups together, everybody, and keep those prayers going for Zach. There's been a lot of really good news, frankly, like miraculous level news coming out of the Zach camp. So our thoughts, prayers, and push-ups are doing their job. Everybody, please be good to each other. It's the only way any of this works. I was a little grumpy about the Trump stuff to start the show, not because I'm really not like a toxic anti-Trump guy, but I really want things to go well for the country. I kind of don't care who's at the helm if they do a good job, and so I'm sending thoughts and prayers that direction too. But this Marco Rubio, Secretary of State's got me. I don't love it. It's not good, and is not an example of a guy who wants us to be good to each other. So let's do better, I guess. Anyways, I'm Kurt Wuckert Jr., your delightful, maybe demented, bald, white American host, and this is the CoinGeek Weekly live stream. I appreciate you for watching. We are 4 minutes after the top of the hour, and I should probably wrap this up. See you next week. Goodbye.
Choose your hero. Aldrich Soyhammer, Divine Crusader.
The time is now, champion. To war!
Jesus the Risen.
Blessed be the cheddar.
Boris, Protector of Innocence.
I'm all natural.
Solren, Scythe of the Damned.
Your soul is mine. No refunds.
Lilith, Princess of Hell.
Self-destruction is an art.
Wagyu, Tasty Samurai.
High-grade beef with a killer instinct.
Skibbity,
Skibbity.
Brain Rot Incarnate.
Skibbity-dop-dop.